This is the calling of the prophets. So remember last week we talked about how they're going to go through the different prophets. And now this book, Isaiah, is awesome.
Yes, it is.
If you take Isaiah out of the Old Testament, you won't be able to understand the New Testament because you won't understand what's going on. And particularly, Isaiah 6 is awesome. A lot of people preach it and they talk about it, especially like Deke was saying, when preachers get called and different things, they reference this. But we're going to break it down and we're going to see some interesting things this morning as I review. And I promise I won't go until 11 o'clock. I hope I won't, because I love this passage of scripture. But I'm going to give you a chance to get your coffee and stuff. But let's just read it. And I brought my Bible out today because this kind of gets me scrambled. So the calling of the prophets, Humi chapter 6, let's read it in its entirety, verses 1 through 8. In the year that King Uzziah died, I also saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Man, I could stop there and preach there for 6 weeks. Above it stood the seraphims, each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. It's amazing what God will do to you once he clean you up. God didn't even tell him where he was going. He's like, I don't care, I'll go. Here I am. I ain't told you where to go. Here I am, wherever you tell me to go. So let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, it says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord. See, when you see that, you go ding, 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 because you can't go any further because there's some stuff you need to know. First of all, you got your characters in this voice. You got King Uzziah. You got Isaiah who's talking about it. And then you have the Lord, capital L-O-R-D, Adonai, the sovereign Lord. So in the year King Uzziah died, why is he pointing that out? Why is that so important that when Uzziah died, he saw the Lord? Now let me make a quick point about this. Sometimes we have to, sometimes our Uzziahs got to die in order for you to see the Lord. Sometimes you have things, people, places, circumstances that's so big in your life that you can't see the Lord clearly until they are removed. Let me give you a prime example. If you're writing this text, you could say something like, in the year grandma died, I saw the Lord. Because she was so big that she blocked God from me because I actually was looking at her religion instead of looking at God. So if grandma said it was all right, then it must be all right because she's that close to God. So every now and then, God has to remove Uzziah. Now let's talk about King Uzziah. Now King Uzziah was a very important monarch in Israel. He was close to being on the status with David. He came to the throne at 16. And he ran a steady ship. He was on the throne for 52 years. Now you guys understand that. So for 52 years, as long as Uzziah was on the throne, the economy was good. As long as Uzziah was on the throne, commerce was good. So it was a prosperous, good time for the nation of Israel. Even though in chapter 5, God already had told him, I'm going to tear this vineyard up and I'm going to send the Babylonians in. And then this is like 100 years before the Babylonian captivity. And you know they deported them Jews out of there in 3 deportations. But that's further on down the line. I'm just saying this to say that Uzziah was bigger than life. And then what ended up happening to Uzziah was he got the big head and he extended past what he was supposed to do. He covered outside of the lines and he went into the temple and he went into the Holy of Holies, where only the priest was supposed to go. And they tried to stop him. Now this is where pride got in. That's why you got to be careful about pride, because pride will push you over the edge and make you go places you shouldn't go and say things you shouldn't say. And once you do that with God, you can't take that. So he was the king, he wasn't the priest. And remember, there was a separation of church and state, if you will, because the priest operated the priesthood, the king just ran the country. And so they, you know, the very specific rules about who could go in that temple. And he decided, he got arrogant, he got full of himself, he started reading his own press clippings. They tried to stop him. They said, king, don't go in there, don't go in there. But he's so full of himself. Now 52 years on the throne, so full of his own self, I don't care what he say, care what he preachers say, I'm going to give what I want to. And he went in there, and he started going in there, and he started offering up praises and trying to offer sacrifices to the Lord. The Lord struck him with leprosy. And because of the leprosy, it got so bad that he eventually died. Now imagine this great man, this man that they had on God's status in their eyes, because he was bigger than life, because he had been the king for so long. Now watch him die, and now he's dead. This is a sad day in Israel. This is a very hard time for them, because they look to the king for everything. And not only is it a hard time, but it's a national shame because of what the king did. It's all through the nation. Everybody knows. And so they're mourning. And Isaiah, that's where you set up. You got to have context. That's the context. That's why he says in the year. Because everybody knew when Uzziah died. Everybody knew. So if you're reading this because he's writing to the tribes, they can identify. They know exactly the year. They know who Uzziah is. Now you do too. Now watch, Uzziah died, he's mourning because there's some conflict going on, and there's also a crisis going on. And a lot of times, crisis will drive you to the church. A lot of times when you're outside of where you should be, God will allow a crisis to put you back where you need to be. Because sometimes we get spoiled, or we get beside ourselves and we don't think we need God, so he'll allow something to come that'll push you back where you're supposed to be. So he saw the Lord, L-O-R-D, Adonai, sovereign God. Now watch what he saw. Now this is an awesome vision he's seeing, because he sees the Lord what? Sitting upon the throne. You can't jump over that. Why? Because he's getting a chance to see God in his full authority. Not a vacant throne. He's sitting on the throne as operator, CEO of the universe. He's in the office. He's seeing God as God really is. Now watch this. It says sitting upon the throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Now that's an awesome statement, because kings were known by the long side of the trail, kind of like a bride, right? When a bride gets married, she comes down the aisle, she's got this train following her, right? The bigger the train is, the better, right? And that's how it was for kings. The longer the train was, the bigger the train was, it talked about their majesty. So if they had conquered many countries and many colonies, they had a longer train. And as they went along, as they conquered more territory and became bigger, they would add length onto it. So it was a status symbol of which king had the longest train. Now Isaiah walks into the presence of the Lord. He sees God in his operation, and not only is his train long, but it fills the entire temple, which signifies that there is no other king better than this king. Ain't no more room to put nothing else on, because truthfully, he's the only king. So you imagine this sight he's seeing, and he's seeing God, and then all of a sudden, he said above it stood the seraphim. Lord have mercy. Now the seraphims are a special set of angels. The word seraphim means burning ones. So they are physically, literally on fire above the temple. What does fire produce? Fire produces light. So because these seraphims are fired up above the throne, you can imagine how spectacular the scene is. Lord have mercy. Now, this is a picture of what should happen during salvation. What happens is, whatever's holding you back, God kills it off. Once he kills it off, you're able to get a better understanding and a better vision of who God is. Once you get a better vision of who God is, He's high, He's holy, and His train is filling the road, what starts to happen is it exposes you to you.
Yes.
Okay, you missed it because watch this. He seen the seraphim, and the seraphims were covering themselves. And the reason why they were covering themselves is because you can't look directly at God and live.
Yes.
Nobody can look directly at God and live except for Jesus.
Yes.
And so they cover their eyes because they know they can't look upon Him because they'll blow up in flames. They cover their feet because they know that they're in a holy place.
Yes.
So you got to cover your feet. And then they kind of use their wings to fly around. So they're flying in a humble, covered position because they're in the presence of God.
Yes.
That's why I always say to us, be careful how you come before the Lord. Because you have to come before the Lord in a certain kind of way with a certain kind of mindset because He's holy.
Yes.
Watch this. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory. So now not only do you see a picture of salvation, but now you see a picture of how church really should be. Because these angels, they're singing. And it's an intensity. One side says one part, one side says another part. So you see worship going on. Wherever God's presence is, there ought to be worship.
Yes, yes.
See, they're singing. They're not crying, love, love, love.
No.
They're not saying mercy, 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 even though we know God is full of mercy. We know He's full of love. So obviously, if they're saying holy, 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 the most important object in worship is that you need to understand that God is holy.
Yes.
And what that means is that God is so holy, you can't be God, not even a life. He's higher than us.
Yes.
Watch it. It says holy, holy, holy. How many holies do you see?
3.
How many people in the Godhead?
3.
One holy for God the Father. One holy for God the Son. One holy. He did a brilliant job of writing this. And if you look at the writing, the first when he says holy, 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 you know he's talking about God because the first holy is what? Capitalized. See, God has order, church. That's all I'm trying to show you. Is that we may not catch it, but even in God's writing about Himself, it's always got to be bona fide and in order. He does nothing out of order because He's a God of order. So they're singing. So you see what should go on when the presence of God is actually activated. When the presence of God is actually activated and He's in His proper place, there's singing going on. Now watch this. And the post of the door moved at the voice of Him and cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Whenever the presence of God is around, it ought to be some movement. It ought to be some noise. That's why I don't like a quiet church. Because if God is actually on the scene, stuff is moving, noise is being made. Because He's not a silent God, He's a holy God. And when He starts talking, stuff starts moving. That's how you know when you're really in the presence of God. Not this manufactured, commercialized stuff we do as a play that we put on. But when you're in the presence of God, I don't care if you're in the church, I don't care where you are, it ought to be something going on because you're standing in front of the God of the universe. The post of the door moved at the voice of Him that cried, and the house was full of smoke. Now watch this. Then said, whoa. Because he understands now. Because when you really in the presence of God, you will say, I'm supposed to be in here. There's something going on here. I know I ain't worthy to be in here. So he says, woe is me, because the presence of God will expose you to you. Watch this. He said, woe is me. Why? Because now I see myself. I see myself. Why? Because I'm in a land full of customers. And I cuss too. And so do they. So when you see he's crying out because God didn't have to expose him. The fact that he was in God's presence allowed him to see for himself that he wasn't measuring up to where he needed to be. See, God didn't kill him. God just showed him. And that's what God does to us. That's why when you come to worship, it's not about you listening to the sermon for your cousin and your grandchildren. It's about you listening to God. And then if it applies to them, then fine. But I'm not up here, God is not up here using me to talk to you about somebody else. He's talking to you about you. Because the word of God, the presence of God, exposes you for who you are. I wasn't going to preach it, but it's hard not to. He said, so I'm undone. Why? Because I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He's seen holiness, now he knows what holiness looks like. And that's what, as a church, we try to model to people when they come in. This is what church sounds like. This is what church feels like, so that they'll get a chance to relax and see themselves.
Amen.
But if we keep up a whole lot of commotion and we all out of order and stuff, it gives them the justification of not paying attention to what God's saying to them. So that's why we have to have order when we do things. That's why stuff has to be on point, because we don't want to give nobody no excuse for missing what God had to say to them. We won't give you no excuse. So watch this. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken from the tongues from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. So again, here's the picture. He comes in the temple. The presence of the Lord is high because he's in the real temple. He gets all undone because of the holiness of God. He exposed himself to himself, but he didn't have to fix himself because God knew what was wrong with him. So because now he identifies his problem, God says, now that you know what's wrong with you, now I'm going to help you get it together. So he sends an angel to take a live coal to clean up his mouth, because you ain't able to preach with a filthy mouth, because I'm about to send you to preach. So the first thing I got to do before I can send you to talk from you is I got to get your language together. And the only way I can get your language together is it's got to be a divine move on my part to clean you up. So God ain't going to stages with this. He said, I'm going to clean this up right now. And see, a lot of times in your life and in my life, he'll take your bad choice to fix you. He said, okay, I know what you're going to do. Since you done done it, I ain't going to whoop you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change you so we can go and get it fixed. Lord. And then, so you see that. So he comes in the church, he gets exposed for who he is. God fixes him, and then he gets saved.
Yes.
That's what Second says. It says he laid it on my mouth. Lo, this has touched thy lips. What is salvation? Your iniquity has been what? Taken away, and your sin is purged. That means he got saved. That's the process that should happen in church every Sunday. You should be able to come in church, feel the presence of God, get in the presence of God. He showed you, and you try to get yourself together, realizing you can't. You give it back to him. He fixed you, and now you get saved. And you get delivered. That's what God was trying to show Isaiah, but he had to move Uzziah in order for him to see himself. Lord have mercy. See, that's why that old dude you was trying to date, that's why God moved. So that girl, you like, that's why God moved.
That's right.
The neighbors that you couldn't get along with, the ones you play spades and drink with, that's why he had to move. Because he needed to get your full attention. See, they got you playing bingo every night. He's trying to get you to read. So what he does is he'll just move.
That's right.
Kids acting all bad. What do you do? Grow them up, move out the way. Because it's always about you. It's never about somebody else.
That's right.
It's always about you when it comes to God.
Amen.
All right, let's keep going. I said, all right, I'm almost done. Also, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us?
Amen.
Then said I, here am I, send me. So here he is. He saved. He's on fire for the Lord. Because those seraphims being on fire showed him that the closer you get to God, the more fire you should get for God. See, they real close. They above the altar. See, when you close to God, you on fire for the Lord. The problem is that every time you catch fire, the devil sends somebody from the fire department to put you out. You waving, having a good time, and somebody taps you like, we don't do all that over there. Or they get to looking at you like something wrong. But I'm here to tell you today, don't worry about whatever people say. If you worry about what they see and what they say, close your eyes. I tell folks, that's why the Lord had to put me on the stage, because I'll knock the whole row out. I'll knock you out the way when I get mad. When I'm sitting in the audience, I'm a praise captain. I ain't waiting on you to praise. I'm a praise captain. And I'm going to look at you and say, turn to you there because you should be sat next to. So watch, now he's cleaned up.
That's right.
So he's seen the Lord. Now he gets a chance to hear the Lord.
Yeah.
See, it's twofold with God, because God never wastes his God. He either gonna show you something, or he gonna let you hear something.
Yeah.
But if you're really special, he gonna let you see it, and he gonna let you hear it.
Yeah.
See, because now he's saved. Now he's in a position where he's ready for service. Because now God has cleaned him up, he's purged him, he's got him ready to go, and now God ain't gonna just have you ready to go and don't give you nothing to do. That's not how God works.
No.
Oh no, he's not gonna clean you up so you can just sit around looking good. Oh no, he can give you that new car just so you can drive yourself around. He gave it to you in hopes that you would pick somebody up and bring them to church.
Amen. Amen.
I know, because I know that's how God is. Because God didn't give you a four-seater, it's only one of you. If he wanted it to just be you and your wife, he'd have gave you a two-seater. So now he's cleaned up. And watch what the Lord said. The Lord wasn't talking to him, but he heard the conversation.
Yeah.
The Lord is really asking a rhetorical question. Because God really wants him to accept the assignment. Because God's never going to force you to do something you don't want to do. He's not going to make you do anything. He don't even make you accept him as God.
That's right.
He's never going to come down. You are a free moral agent. You can choose to do whatever you want to do. That's why I applaud you when you come to Sunday school, come to church, because you really don't have to, because you can say no.
Yes. Yes.
I know your life don't change a little bit. When you tell God no, you expect some changes.
My Lord.
But if you say yes, then God can use you. And I believe that God only brings the folk that's ready to say yes.
That's right.
Right? Because the folk that are not ready to say yes are still at home wondering if they're coming today.
That's right.
We already here.
Yeah.
And in order for you to be here at this hour, that means you was thinking about God last night.
Yeah. Amen.
That old deacon told me, he said, I get ready for Sunday after Sunday service. That's how hot he is for the Lord. I put my suit out Sunday night after Sunday morning for next Sunday. Because I want to send the message to the devil. I'm going to church next Sunday too. So you don't wake up thinking about God. You get prepared to meet God. See, I got to prepare to meet God. I can't just jump up and put on my holy. I got to have spent some time with God to get in front of you. That means if I want to look good, I got to start early and tell you, think I want to look this good. So when it's just like ladies, single ladies, when you going on a date with a man, I know y'all ain't been single a long time, but just the ones that might apply to. You don't just jump up and throw on anything. You get ready. Because you want him to know he's messing with valued material. This ain't just anything, right?
That's right.
And I know for a lot of brothers, that's why it's hard, because it's hard to handle saved, sexy, and single. But that's why it's hard for the brothers. And he says, the question is, whom shall I send?
Yeah.
And who will go for us? God is always looking for somebody to represent him.
Amen.
He says, I'm sending you not to represent you.
That's right.
I'm sending you to represent me.
Yeah.
See, we are ambassadors. See, and as ambassadors, you're representing the kingdom.
That's right.
And so when you're an ambassador, you can't just say what you want to say.
That's right.
You got to say what the government tells you to say.
Yeah.
Because if you mess around as an ambassador, say you're an ambassador for the U.S. and you over in China, and you mess around and don't check with the government, and you just say something you want to say, you can start an international war because you didn't check with the government.
Yeah.
He says, you going for me or for us.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go for us, then the mandate has to come from the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
Now remember, the scene is that Isaiah is in the office. He sees God at work. God is working. He's nationally controlling the whole universe, and Isaiah is getting a whole witness of this. So he's already in operations. He's already in the human resource department. Get interviewed. And he says, well, who will go? Why he said? Then said I,
Yes.
here am I. Send me.
Amen.
Now that's great, because he understands fully who he is now.
Yes.
He understands fully who God is now.
Amen.
He understands what God has just did for him. The fact that he's not dead in the presence of God, and he understood that he was sinful, standing in the presence of God, but instead of God killing him, God cleaned him up and saved him. He's saying, because of that, my gratitude is so much so because of what you did, I'm willing to work for you.
Yes.
Right, so the question, who me? Then why not you? You waiting on God to send somebody else, what's wrong with you? Right? Folks tell you all the time, well, God told me to do this. Well, why you ain't doing it? You say God called you to do this, you ain't doing it. God called me to be in the choir, why you ain't in the choir? Because if you look at your gifts and you look at what you're doing, if you're not operating in your gift, you basically has told God either no or wait, and either one of them ain't gonna work with God. Because what happens is when you tell God no or wait, you slowly start dying. Not physically, but spiritually. You start shriveling up. And a lot of folks have died at 20 and they didn't get buried till they were 70.
My God.
Because they told God no or wait. When my daddy said move, he meant move, not now, but right now. He didn't say think about it. So as I pick my face up off the ground, I'm still gotta go, right? So whereas I would have went in one piece and had it if I just did what he said, now I'm going